Everybody, here we go. Let's get this going. This is the November 14th meeting of the November 14th meeting of the Citizens Advisory Committee of the Costa Mesa Sanitary District. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 6:02. Yeah, good enough, 6:02. We'll do roll call.
Shane Smith.
Here.
Tom Brenneman.
Here.
Sue Lester. Here. Bill Marsh. Monty Fields.
Here.
Mike McElroy. Here. Jana Oak. Elodie Katz. Here. Andrew Nielsen.
Here.
Albert Graham Jr.
Here.
And Chair Mike Carey.
Here, present. Okay. Great. At this time, I'd like to open it up to receive any public comments, written or otherwise. Anybody from the public like to speak? Mr. Moser? Yeah? Okay. No written comments, correct? Okay, at this time we'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the September 12th meeting. Has everybody had a chance to look at these? Any corrections or clarifications? No?
All motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? I'm going to abstain because I wasn't here for that meeting. Motion carries. Then we'll move on to the minutes from our last meeting, which was on October 10th. Those were lengthy minutes. You guys, everybody have a chance to look at those as well?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Second. Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
I love
Okay, gotcha. All right, where are we at? Okay, the draft board minutes of the Board of Directors meeting minutes of October 25th. I guess we don't need a motion for that. Just receive and
answer
file.
any questions.
Yeah,
Anyone have any questions?
Does anybody have any questions?
I think last meeting we just asked if there's anything in particular that was of note or out of the ordinary.
Here comes either notes or out of the ordinary.
Sure. Okay. No worries. Let me pull that up. 1 second. Nothing out of the ordinary. Just I do want to mention though that the board did approve creating the ad hoc committee, and joining Chairman Carey and Vice Chairman Graham will be Secretary Schaefer and Director Perry. They'll be joining staff on that committee. The first meeting was originally scheduled, I think, in 2 weeks, but we had to reschedule it again. So the first meeting will come up here real soon, and they'll be starting planning events for our 75th anniversary.
You didn't set the meeting date. We'll hear from that.
Correct. You'll get an email from Nolani on a date that you're available.
Thank you.
That was anything significant. If there's anything else you want me to talk about, I'd be more than happy to do so. But just want to bring that to your attention.
Could you clarify the discussion about the per capita measurement versus the diversion percentage?
Sure. I think that's
That was the strategic plan discussion.
okay. So the difference between per capita and the diversion, certainly. So they're under AB 939. It's a regulation that was adopted in 1989 that requires all jurisdictions to divert 50% of their solid waste away from landfills by the year 2000. That was the goal. They had diversion. You need to divert waste from the landfill. The CalRecycle, the agency that is the agency that regulates AB 939, they changed the formula through a legislation, and now it's on a disposal per capita. And so there's a target. Each community has a target per capita disposal of, like for Costa Mesa, it's 8.5 pounds per capita. So the goal is to get under that 8.5 pounds per capita. and Costa Mesa is at 4.5 right now. So we're well below the number, which is great. And we just had a presentation yesterday. In fact, I encourage you to watch it on the website. Our the board of directors study session meeting. Jeff Sessions, the vice president of CRNR, gave a great presentation about our community outreach efforts to increase our diversion. And when you convert that 4.5 per capita, it's over 71% diversion. So we're very pleased with that. So the goal is to get to 75%. That's the goal that the board set for staff. And so we're coming up with new programs and outreach efforts to hit that mark.
Is he the person that was the staff member that was going to look into strategies for how to try to better meet this?
Yes, it was one of the staff person. There was two. He's the senior. The vice president, and then they have a sustainable, I think, coordinator that works with Nabila Guzman of my staff, and those two are responsible for coming up with those programs. Yes.
To clarify, who is the VP of CRNR?
It's Jeff Snow. Jeff Snow.
Yeah.
You're probably thinking of Dean Ruffridge. He's a senior vice president. So Jeff Snow is a newly employee. Came from Rainbow Republic out in Huntington Beach. So he's a new employee for CRNR.
CRNR is fortunate to have him.
Yes, definitely.
Is that all, Scott?
Yes, it is. Unless there's any more questions.
Questions? No? Anyone? All right. Moving on to the first quarter budget review for 2018-19.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize. This report should have been on your last month's agenda, but we just didn't have the report ready, so that's why we're presenting it to you tonight. So every quarter, we present to the board a budget review that gives them an outlook on how we're doing our expenditures and if we're coming within or we're staying within our expenditures. And if you open up that staff report, and on the second attachment, which is the expenditure analysis, if you go down, I think it's page 2, to the wastewater fund, you'll notice that the miscellaneous sewer work is already over budgeted by $71,500. And the reason that is because of the sanitary sewer overflow we had on August 13th that was under the Mesa Drive Bridge. Actually, the expenditures are finalizing those expenditures. It's about $225,000 we spent on that SSO. Part of that.
What was the date of that, did you say?
August 13th.
Just a couple
Just,
months ago?
yes, August 13th,
Is
yes.
that the first one you've had? Because I thought in 2017 you guys didn't have any at all.
Correct. We didn't have any in 2017 at all. Then we had one in the beginning of the year over at on 19th Street near the park.
So we've had 2 this year.
Yes, but I wanted to clarify, the one on the 19th Street park was caused by the contractor who renovated the pump station. He bored a storm drain pipe through the sewer pipe, and that's what rags got caught into it.
The district did wrong.
Right. It's just that was the contractor. The one on the 13th, on August 13th, it was an air release valve that ruptured, and we spent about $70,000 replacing that valve. Another $75,000 was cleaning the storm drain channel at Caltrans property, which is on the freeway underneath there. So that was significant cost. So yeah, that was very expensive, and we still haven't heard from the regulators yet. So
Because a valve broke.
yeah, it burst. It's a
That's nobody's fault either,
It's
really.
a pressurized. Well, it's a pressurized pipe. The last time we inspected it, we didn't see any corrosions, but sometimes these things happen.
Right.
So we're going to be make sure we're on a regular inspections on that pipe. So.
The contractor that caused the other one, did
Yes.
you have to pay for
Yes.
the inspections of all of that?
Yes, we made them reimburse us. In fact, they actually came to the board trying to beg for mercy, and the board said, no, you got to pay. So I can't remember what the tally was, but we recouped all our costs from that. Yes.
Put them out of business just about probably.
No, it wasn't that. No, it wasn't like that. No, nothing like that. But they definitely lost money on the project for sure. So that's so the first quarter. You'll see a lot of projections are on target. As we get closer to the end of the year, you'll probably see some more of the yellow highlights, some more analysis of our projections. So the first quarter is relatively easy, just making some assumptions. You'll see when we get to the second and third quarter, you'll see those numbers change. So I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Any other questions or comments regarding the budget? Nope. Good? Nails are good? Okay. Okay, moving on to the next agenda item, the comparison between the City of Newport Beach and the Costa Mesa Sanitary District solid waste contracts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This was recommended by the committee to bring this item back for discussion. And what I'm going to have my staff, Nabila Guzman, help me on this report to present to you the differences between our contract and Newport Beach contract. However, what I wanted to bring to your attention, if you read underneath the tablets, underneath the table, some significant differences between Newport Beach and Costa Mesa Sanitary District. One is that, probably not aware, Newport Beach residents, they do not recycle green waste. They don't have green waste containers. So the program is available if the city wants to go in that direction and have organics, but they're not required to do that. They're also required to divert 45% versus 50% like we do. Obviously, the more you recycle, the more costly it's going to be. Another factor to consider is that Newport Beach has a transfer station, a solid waste transfer station over, I think it's on Superior. So that's less travel time to dump the solid waste load and get back in the streets to collect trash. So that saves money. And also, our consultant estimated that the city's net to hauler rate was $13.74. I'm sorry, it's $14.32. Now, I also want to remind the community that the Newport Beach residents, they don't have a bill, whether they don't get a bill in the mail or they're not assessed, because under their charter, the city has to pay that out of the general fund. So the city pays it, just like this is the same fund they pay for the police and their fire, pays for solid waste. Now, if you talk to city officials, I'm sure they would love to have their solid waste into what we call an enterprise fund, which is like a pay-as-you-go type of program, because they're spending $3-4 million a year. That money out of the general fund can go to other services. But because it's under charter, they have to pay out of the general fund. So they don't see a bill. But what we calculate based on what they're paying CRNR, it's $14.32 per month. But then, in addition to that, they pay $3 a month for recycling. So they get a utility. I believe it's a bill, and I forget what it's called. And it's $3 a month, and that's to help pay for, they call it municipal bill, and it's paid for recycling fees. So if you add that to the $14.32, they're at $17.32, and we're at $17.88. So it's very comparable, and I think you will agree, and I'll turn it over to Nabila, that the services is comparable, maybe a little bit more enhanced than Newport Beach, and I'll turn it over to Nabila to go over those differences, and then we'll be able to answer any questions. So, Nabila, if you want to come on up.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Per direction received from the committee, district staff has reviewed both contracts, the City of Newport Beach and Costa Mesa Sanitary District's contract. For comparison, the report summarizes key similarities and differences between both contracts. I would like to highlight two things. The City of Newport Beach's contract allows for annual cost of living adjustments, up to 5% annually. There's no cap, while the district requests that CRNR present their need to the board for approval, so it's not automatic. Additionally, the City of Newport Beach receives bulky item pickups and HHW at an additional cost, while the district does not pay, the residents don't pay, and the district does not pay extra for those services, which is the same in the City of Newport Beach. Those are some of the key major differences, but if the committee has any questions, I would be glad to answer them.
I have one.
Yes.
Thank you so much for putting this together. It was really thorough, and it was amazing to see how many different variations there are in the contract. So thank you for going into that level of detail.
No problem.
I just was curious, generally the diversion requirement, how can a city say, or a district say, I want 45% or 50% recycled? If there aren't enough recyclable materials, how does that?
It is up to each municipality. It is just what they want to pay for. Again, recycling is not mandatory in the City of Newport Beach. They do not commingle their trash, and they don't have to separate. So it is just what they decided. I could not find any information as to how they arrived to 45%.
I can explain that, actually.
Okay.
So, as I mentioned, earlier, the goal is 50% diversion. That includes residential and commercial.
Okay.
Okay. So the city can say, well, for residential, we can divert 45%, and we can make that up on the commercial side, and that's what they're doing. So we're just responsible for residential. So that's why we set a goal of 50% of residential, actually 75% of residential diversion, but it's really 50% of the entire community. So they take, in fact, commercial and residential.
So is that to say that there are possibly more recyclables, they just aren't included? They only need to meet 50%?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, what they're saying is excuse me, they are, even though they might be only diverting 45% of the residential side, they're still complying with state regulations because they're making that up on the commercial side.
But then there are recyclables potentially going into the landfill?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And I also do want to mention the last time we had a solid waste rate increase was 2004.
Noticing on the website, 2013.
Yes, 2004 was the last time. In fact, we've had 2 rate decreases, which you don't see a lot in municipalities. We had one in 2013 and 2014. So the board has been great at helping us keep the rate stabilized. Now, that's not going to last forever. We are under currently, Nabila is working with a consultant on a solid waste rate study. The reason why we're able to keep those rates stabilized is because we're using reserves in our solid waste fund to draw that down. We're going to come to a limit where we're going to have to raise the rates. We will present the consultant's recommendations to you, get your input before we send it to the board, so that will come probably in a couple of months. In January. Okay, so.
What is I was reading that, the ADA, was it ADA rollout, is that what it said? ADA rollout service, what is that?
It is a free service. It's American Disabilities Act.
Okay.
So if any of the residents have any disabilities or they're seniors, they've hurt their back, anything like that, the hauler will pull out their cards. So they just need to contact the district. We'll pull out the cards, after, service them, and then put them back in so they don't have to worry.
The doctor's letter, it said?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Just wondering what that was.
No
Is
problem.
that a program that many residents of Costa Mesa Sanitary take advantage of?
I don't have the exact number, but it's quite a few. It's maybe in the 45-ish, 45 to 50 range. Not that many, again. It's something we do advertise if they call and say, we can't pull our card out, or I need assistance, then it's when we offer it.
So,
Yes?
45 or 50%, or?
No, 45 or 50 residents.
Well, it's out of like
households total.
22,000,
Mhm.
right?
Yes, correct.
so we don't have any idea or any way to even measure what the commercial diversion is because there's so many carriers, correct?
There's
Because it's
12,
not done
right?
for you guys in the carrier, any commercial can, like, do you even
No,
know that?
no, that's not true because the city has a city rep that is the city contact and monitors all the commercial activities. So the haulers have to submit that data to the city, and then.
Does the city share that with you guys so you know?
Not necessarily, not with the commercial. We know, we do have if you go on Cal Recycle website, and we can provide that information to you, there is I think the target they set for commercial, I think, what was it, 11? Do you remember what it was? I forget what it was, but they are complying with state regulation. It is far below the target for commercial. There's 6 haulers here in Costa Mesa that pick up commercial, and all those 6 haulers have to submit data to the city. And so that's how they capture that data.
I should know the answer to this, but do you know, is Newport Beach franchised to where businesses have to use the same hauler as residents?
No,
or
Newport
are
Beach is just like Costa Mesa. It's open. Yeah, only Newport Beach and Costa Mesa are only 2 cities that have what we call an open market on the commercial side, where any business can contact any of one of these 6 haulers and they can get a rate. Where all the other cities, they have an exclusive franchise agreement with one hauler, and that hauler is responsible for picking up all residential, all commercial. And the purpose for that, it's just you got fewer trucks on the road. It's easier to manage. It's just, for our administrative side, it's easier. But I can also see if you want to be business friendly, I get that
Trying
too.
to shop around and get the best rate.
Right,
That's
right.
the point of it.
Yeah. Well, and when you have an exclusive franchise agreement, the rates are set by the elected body. So whatever the elected body sets that rate, that's the rate. They can't adjust that rate at all. That's the
They
rate.
just pick out who they want to do it.
Yes. And then the elected body is the one that agrees to what that rate's going to be. So
And you had said there hasn't been a rate increase
since 2004.
That's
Yes.
admirable since the
Since
landfill
2004.
Correct.
landfill fees have gone up over 30% since.
Yes.
Is that what the ratepayers pay, or what we are being charged by CR&R?
It's what we're being charged by. CRNR is charging us more than what you're being assessed, because that difference is being made up by the reserves we have. So yes.
I noticed that Newport Beach has a community shred day, and Costa Mesa doesn't, and I'm not sure how important the program is. Just every other program under the sun, Costa Mesa does
Sure.
offer, so I was just curious
Yeah.
if that's something there's ever been an expressed interest in, and if we should consider that for...
We did talk about that during negotiations, saying Newport Beach does it, why can't we? And the hauler said it was just too expensive and the turnout is never big enough.
There are several businesses in Costa Mesa, though, that on an annual basis will do a shred, like Torelli Realty sponsors one.
Whiteman does,
I'm trying to
too.
think, there's like 3 or 4, and they do them kind of at different times of the year. It works out sort of being quarterly, but it doesn't have anything to do
That's
with
a good point. And that
the
was
district.
Yeah, that was a good point. And that was one, also we took that consideration too when we heard there's other organizations out there that provide that free shredding event. We thought, okay, it's been taken care of. So that's why we didn't really push it very hard.
Do we announce those free shredding events?
No, we don't have them.
Yeah, we don't.
We don't have.
Yeah.
Or
No.
even concurrently with Newport, say like, hey, Newport is having a shredding event. Costa Mesa takes-
Yeah, I don't think they would like that. I don't think they would like us, because their residents are paying for that service. So I don't think they would like us announcing that. Unless, no, they wouldn't like that at all. So.
What if the partners were in the sanitary district's, order, like Torelli Real Estate, for example?
Yeah, if we heard about it, if we can definitely put that on our social media, put it on our website. We can make a note of that, try to reach out and let people know, sure.
I find out about this stuff either from the city's website or if you subscribe to the Costa Mesa Minute. It's like this silly little video that comes to you every single morning, and it's under 2 minutes, and it tells you all that kind of stuff, and it tells you like all the fun stuff and all the events and all that kind of stuff, and that's how I find out about everything. And if they didn't send it to me, I probably wouldn't take the time to go and look. So you can subscribe and it sends them to you. And it really is informative, so that's how you can find out that kind of stuff.
Mr. Moser, do you have a question, a comment?
Some comments about your last discussion about the shredding and how popular that might be. I happen to live in Newport Beach, so I am one of the district's wastewater-only customers who lives there. Like Costa Mesa, Newport Beach does have a variety of private companies that provide shredding from time to time, but CRNR, as you heard, does provide the service. And as to it not being popular, they held an event just this last Saturday at the Mariners Elementary School, for those of you who know where that is, on the border between Newport Beach and Costa Mesa on Irvine Avenue. And at last night's council meeting, the council was apologizing that CRNR had to shut down the shredding event after a couple of hours because their trucks were filled and they didn't have enough capacity to haul away the paper. So you might find it's more popular than you imagine that, or think that it is. As to your last question about the commercial haulers, I don't know the number in Costa Mesa. In Newport Beach, they have about 36 franchisees who are qualified for hauling commercial waste. A very large number, and some people are concerned maybe the number is too big, because then you do have numerous trucks making trips to the same place. And And as to the presentation, I don't think it was emphasized enough. The main difference between the contracts and the handling and the experience for the customers in Newport Beach versus here is you are allowed a great variety of containers. They can be, it lists here 3 different sizes, from very little ones to very big ones. You can change at will how many you have. And there is no charge for changing from a whole lot of little ones to a couple of big ones or whatever you want. And although in Newport Beach we do not have the organic program, there is a voluntary recycling program, so people who want to do that can have a cart or any number of carts that they want devoted to recyclables. And so that's another program.
But didn't it say on there that Newport has the option to have the organic cart if they want it?
No, that's an
option.
Perhaps the presentation was not clear. The contract.
Oh, I was reading off there.
The contract has in it a promise from CR&R that at some time in the future, if Newport wanted to have an organic program, CR&R would accommodate that. But there is no such cart available at the moment. The choices are either mixed waste or a recyclable cart, if you want one. And it's a small technicality, but the idea that the customers or residents don't specifically pay for the service is actually not in the city charter. It was a citizen initiative, which you can do also in Costa Mesa. It has very much the same effect as a charter amendment, but it was enacted way back in 1959. And the idea was that the trash service should be something that's paid out of your basic residential property tax bill, and it should not be an extra charge on top of that. And then it was reenacted in 1996 with some slight variations to that. And I think that's most of what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moser. I think we'll find out in another report here that if you request changing of your carts here in Costa Mesa, that there will be no charge either from CR&R. Is that an accurate statement?
Say that again.
If you request a residential change in your carts, if you wanted a new trash cart, there would be no charge?
Correct. Yeah, correct.
So we do have a limit of up to 4.
Right, yeah, but if you just wanted to swap them out if yours are bad or...
If you want to go to 35, there's no charge. If you were 35 and want to go to 60, there's no charge.
One other thing that I noticed in part of this report that's mentioned frequently in the community is that in Newport Beach, residents are allowed to put out bags and boxes and things outside of the cart that will be picked up by the hauler, and Costa Mesa doesn't. We don't provide for that.
They have the luxury of putting out a bag or a box, whatever they have, and it gets picked up. I used to live in Corona Del Mar. I remember we used trash cans.
Because there's more dense housing and it's hard to have those bulkier carts. I could see there could be a downside to that as well, where things can get torn apart.
Right, that's where I see the downside.
No, I can explain that. Newport Beach has contracted with CR&R only for a very limited number of years. I can't remember the exact number, 5 or 6. Prior to that, the trash service was provided through the property tax bill by city employees. And the city employees did not use automated trucks, so you could put out whatever you wanted on the street, and they would come by hand and load it into the bins, and then it would go into the trash trucks. And the residents of Newport Beach were perhaps somewhat spoiled by that system, so they didn't want to totally give that up. So CR&R, in trying to win a contract, had to make that concession that they would allow excess stuff to be put out as people have been accustomed to in the past, and the driver would get out, and what they have to do is they have to take the bags and put it into a cart because they're using the automated truck, and then they lift it up in an empty cart that happens to be on the street.
And I see they
It's
also have...
not actually been happening all that much. As probably happens in Costa Mesa, people will stuff the bins till the lid is way up in the air. Fairly rare for them to put stuff out by the side.
And I believe they do have a second pickup day during the summer months for, I'm assuming it's just the peninsula?
Yes. Yes. Yep, that's correct.
Thank you.
See, you do have a second pickup day?
And Newport does.
Yeah.
Well, kind of some fun facts that I haven't heard mentioned. The city of Costa Mesa is responsible for making the report to the state. Costa Mesa Sanitary District is about 17% of the tonnage handled in the city. So the commercial industrial tonnage is 83%. So we're a tiny, the residents are a tiny portion of the total. I would encourage you to look at that video that CRNR did. It was very enlightening. We had that at the study session Tuesday morning. There were a lot of facts and figures and goals and potential programs, but it gave data. I think Scott mentioned the number, the diversion number is about 71.4% for the city of Costa Mesa. And that translates to something like there was a goal set, and he mentioned that number. It's a tiny difference to get to 75%, and that's the state's goal. It's not a mandate, no more than the 50% process. Newport Beach is lucky in that they can mix the residential and commercial together, because the commercial makes up a substantial number. Sanitary District residential collection is about 63%, so we're well above the 50%. And our internal goal, our strategic plan, is to get to the 75% number. And I was talking with Mike today, and there was a long discussion at the study session about how the city of Costa Mesa, OCC, and Costa Mesa Sanitary District can work together to meet that 75% goal. It's about 3 or 4 pounds, no, it's about 0.3 to 0.4 pounds per capita additional that would have to be recycled in some way. And so that's achievable. But it's going to take, our board felt that it was necessary to be a cooperative partner in how to achieve that. So we have what's called a district city liaison meeting, and I think that'll be on the agenda next. That goal is for 2020, and that's right around the corner. The sanitary district is expending quite a lot of money, and CRNR is also in conjunction with the sanitary district to try to figure out how to get us to 75%. Getting us to 75% won't make much difference in what the city has to report because we're such a small percentage of the total. So we have to work with the city, or the city has to take up the effort. And so we'll be encouraging them at our liaison committee meetings, whoever the new CEO over there is. Anyway, lots of fun things on the trash side.
I have a question. I don't know if you can answer it, or even if you can answer it, if you just happen to know. Do you know what the city of Costa Mesa franchise fees are for the contracted haulers that they use in addition to you guys?
Well, I only know that they budget $1.6 million from those 6 haulers that do haul. So they charge 17% of whatever. There's a 17% portion of that cost rebated back to the city. So it's $1.6 million in their budget. I don't know what the actual charges are. I think that it varies. But 17% of whatever those haulers charge the commercial and the industrial sector goes back into the city's budget.
Okay, so it's a percentage on what?
I think it's 17%.
Okay.
And many cities have that.
It's based on the individual carrier's charges.
Yeah, I'm sure they're all pretty similar, or else everybody would go to, whichever vendor was lowest. But I don't know what the commercial.
No, thank you. You answered my question because I thought it was based on, you want to be a trash hauler, you have to pay us this much, and it's not. It's a refund of whatever their billings are based on the 17% percentage that the city assigns. Okay, no, that answered my question. Thank you.
I do have one more question about the report. It indicates that both cities have are contracted with the hauler for a composting event. Are we still obligating them to that now that we have the organics program in Costa Mesa?
Yeah, it's a composting giveaway. So we were planning an event in the spring where residents could get a bag of mulch, a big bag of mulch. So that's in the works.
Thank you, Scott. Are there any other questions regarding this report? Thank you, Mr. Carroll.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item number 6, providing solid waste services to wastewater customers. I believe that was a request from our group.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and we're seeking direction from the committee on where you want to go from here. As you heard from Mr. Mosier, he's a customer of us on the wastewater side, but if you want him to be a trash customer, then there are several steps you have to take, and which we outlined in the staff report. The first step is first you need support from the Newport Beach City Council, and they would have to adopt a resolution supporting the change in services, so that we would provide the service instead of the City of Newport Beach. And then the board of directors would have to adopt a resolution describing the organization's intent to expand its services. And then it gets really interesting, because then we got to file it with an agency called the Local Agency Formation Commission, LAFCO, and they are probably one of the most powerful local agencies that no one's ever heard of. They are the agency that has the authority to dissolve or consolidate special districts, incorporate or unincorporate cities. They can change boundaries. They have a lot of power. They consist of mostly elected officials. They have 3 appointments, three city council members that are appointed by cities. Then they have two are voting members, one's an alternate. Then they have 3 two voting members and 1 alternate for representing cities. So the city council members. Then they have 3 board of supervisors from the county. 2 are voting, 1's alternate. Then they have 3 elected officials from special districts. And again, they have 2 voting members, 1 alternate. And then the commission appoints 2 members at large, members of the public, that are not elected officials. They're appointed by the commission. They have one that's voting and 1's an alternate. So that's the comprise of the LAFCO. And in 2001, their powers changed significantly, where every 5 years they had to do what's called a municipal service review. And basically what LAFCO is in charge is making sure that local governments, cities, and special districts are running efficiently. And so every 5 years they develop this report. They analyze all the cities and all special districts on the level of services they're providing. Can they provide, they want to determine if they can provide, do they have enough resources to provide services efficiently? And sometimes they'll make recommendations on how to improve those efficiencies. They do those every 5 years, and they also do what's called sphere of influence to find out, where is that influence lying. They're in the process of doing their next MSR right now. They're in that process right now. They've already reached out to all the special districts in the cities, did some surveying, so they're in the process of doing that. So let's assume the city of Newport Beach adopt a resolution supporting it, which again I think might be a little challenging because, as I mentioned earlier, these residents are not paying for, well, they are paying for it through the property tax, but they're not seeing a bill, right? And so now that they're going to get different services, they might object to that. But in the end, so the Newport Beach City Council would have to adopt a resolution. Then we would have to adopt, our board of directors would adopt an organization intent to expand its services, and then we'd file an application. And then in that application, we have to submit a service plan, maps, legal description, environmental findings, just a bunch of documents. LAFCO staff will do a study. They might hire a consultant themselves to do a study and see if it is more efficient if we would provide that service. Then they do what's called a protest hearing. And that's where they notify a protest hearing. That's when they notify all the residents that would be involved, that would be impacted by this change, and they basically ask, do you support it? Do you support the change service or not? And if they get a 51% protest, then then it fails. Then they don't proceed any further. We cannot proceed. It remains status quo. So that's pretty much the process. It's not cheap. I think we estimated it probably costs about $20,000 for this process. That includes like $5,600 for the initial deposit of LAFCO. There's also a State Board of Equalization fees that we have to pay. You'd have to pay. It's cost for public noticing and publications. CEQA, which is the California Environmental Quality Act reviews. So there's all these costs that are all associated to this process. So that's in a nutshell how it works. I think we also attached more details of the process in the attachments, but that's what it would take, and happy to answer any questions and kind of get some direction. Where do you want to go from here? Because this was a request by this committee to put this on the agenda, so we need some direction from you.
I think I was one of the people that was curious about this, and obviously seeing that Newport, I guess, residents of single-family and multifamily don't pay, in a sense, and would be forced to pay, it probably makes it a non-starter. I think from my perspective, and I apologize if I misunderstood, we were most interested in those customers within, I guess, the city of Costa Mesa that might live in multifamily or commercial, like apartment buildings,
Okay.
that are wastewater customers, but in a sense not solid waste customers. And if to do one is to do both, meaning those Newport residents would also have to be included in the change, then again, it could be a non-starter. But I think it was most about the many programs that we're offering to essentially single-family residents that maybe the renters in apartments or larger dwellings aren't receiving.
I see.
And then also, separate note for those commercial customers, if there is a lot of inefficiencies or overlap, what steps, and I know the director mentioned that maybe over time working with the city, there could be a change where they're combined, or maybe the amount of haulers that are offered as options to the commercial customers could be reduced, or just, I think those two things was more the intent than necessarily bringing in the Newport Beach residents, which again, I'm sure would.
Yeah. Okay.
So and again, I don't mean to put words in anybody's mouth if I misunderstood, but I think that was, from my perspective, one of the, knowing if those things were possible at all, and it could be a similarly laborious process.
Well, I believe the businesses and multifamily residents would be excluded anyway, whether it's Costa Mesa or Newport Beach.
Well, we do service some multifamily units here in Costa Mesa. They're kind of grandfathered in, but it's very limited. So just to understand your request, Commissioner Nelson, you want us to look at expanding the services to multifamily units in Costa Mesa and in Newport Beach?
I guess trying to be as specific as possible. One is some of the those kind of auxiliary benefits to the solid waste contract that CR&R offers to the single-family residents. That's the first issue. And then the second is, over time, could the commercial and any of those multifamily dwellings that aren't part of Costa Mesa sanitary be brought into a single efficient contract?
Gotcha. Okay.
Which, per Director Hooten said, that would be it's 83% of what's hauled away in the city, right? So,
Right. Okay, I understand. Okay.
I don't think there's an easy answer.
Then we have to talk to Nabila about this, and we'll have to put our heads together and maybe see what we can do to come back with you. So maybe I misunderstood you, and I apologize for that. So in the event, at least you have a little lesson learned about LAFCO, so.
At the State of the Union for the Sanitary District, Councilmember Foley was in attendance of that. She's the one that just got elected to mayor. And President Schaefer took questions about certain concerns, and that was one of the things that we brought up, was potentially being more efficient with our commercial stuff as we are with residential, and the difference in carriers and stuff. And I know that at that time, Councilmember Foley said that going forward, she was going to encourage the council to work with the sanitary district on if that's plausible and kind of look at why it's being done that way. Now that she's been elected to mayor, I'm gonna remind her to see if it makes sense or it doesn't make sense as being on the commercial side of it, because we kind of get hosed.
There's an opportunity with the new city council, definitely. So, yeah, well, President Schaefer did mention that to me, so we'll reach out to the city after the new council is sworn in.
Well, what's nice too is 2 of the new council members are big into environmental stuff and have environmental degrees and are big on recycling and environmental issues, so that might work.
Yeah,
City
yeah.
firemen?
No, environmental. They
Oh,
have like an
environmental,
environmental
okay.
background in terms, so
Okay.
being more efficient, I think, is something that they're interested in when it could reflect positively on the environment.
Definitely.
Well, I think, remember, see, you brought a specific anecdote to our attention where if there's a bulky item where you live,
Yeah.
if you call the city, they tell you tough luck, but then if you take it to the street, would you remind us of
Yeah.
your experience?
We have a different hauler. Where I live, like, I live in fourplexes, and each fourplex is required to have a dumpster, but they're all independently owned. So there's trash carriers coming in and out of that all the time. Well, if a large item gets dumped on my property, because I'm where the dumpster is, and I call the city and say, I have a couch and 2 mattresses that someone dumped here, can you help me get rid of them? They're like, no, we can't, because that's private property. If I call the trash hauler directly, based on the number that's on the bin, they won't help me because I'm not their customer, because the customer is paid by the landlord.
But do they also
So-
say that they're not responsible for such a service, or have you not gotten that far?
No, they just say, I can't help you. The property management company has to call. Even I called and said, hey, I understand from the city and the way that the agreement is written with the city that you do so many of these pickups at no charge. They won't even have the conversation with me because I'm not the one that pays the bill. But then if you call the property management company or the owner of the building, because I had one of my neighbors do it just to see if it was different, if it was privately owned or done through a management company, they'll say, okay, well, we can call for the pickup, but it's going to cost you $100. And I'm like, hold on a second. This isn't my stuff. People have dumped this stuff on my property. So what ends up happening, and I've told the city that I do this, so I'm not letting any cat out of the bag, and I stand behind it. I have a flatbed, little rolly thing, that I have to put the couch and the mattresses on it and roll it to the sidewalk, which is public area, or in the middle of the street, which I don't do in the middle of the street because that's dangerous. Then I call the city back and I say, there's 2 mattresses and a couch on the sidewalk in front of my house. Can you have someone pick it up? And they're like, okay, sure. And I mean, I even call them and tell them that you realize I'm going to push this stuff that is not mine to a public area and call you back. Like, why all the extra steps? And they're like, we're just following procedure.
And to the best of your knowledge, does the city call it the sanitary district, or do they have their own?
I think
If it's put in a public right of way, the city will pick it up.
the city
They have, like,
picks
their
it
own
up.
trucks or-
Yeah, the
Yeah.
city picks it up in their public services trucks or whatever, and then ultimately, I think CR&R and
Yeah, then they take it to their yard and they hire, I don't know who they
whoever does.
they pick up a
I don't even
contractor,
know who
yeah.
the carrier. So
I don't
the
either.
city ends up paying for it.
Yeah, but somewhere along the way, someone's getting a bill that has nothing to do with CR&R's contract with sanitary district under that scenario.
Right.
So they're right. So the city's is paying CNR or Waste Management to come to the yard to pick up all the discarded items on the right of way. So the city's paying for that, which, it's probably not budgeted, or maybe it is budgeted, but it shouldn't be their expense.
No, it
Should
shouldn't.
be the property
Yeah.
owner.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be, now they've made it a lot easier where with that Costa Mesa app, I forget what they changed the name of it, but you can actually take a picture of a couch on the side of the road and send it to this app with the photo, with where it is. You don't even have to call anyone anymore. And then they schedule somebody to come by and pick it up. And that happens quite frequently because you'll see couches and things just arbitrarily left on a side street where there's businesses at night.
One of the things that's great about the sanitary district is we'll get, I think it's quarterly, maybe it's monthly newsletters, and it highlights some of the programs. Some of the programs you don't necessarily need to be a solid waste customer to benefit from, because it's drop-offs like the needles here, and, I think you got the things for any number of programs. Do sewer water customers get those same things, or is it only the ratepayers, meaning like the homeowners and the single-family residences?
It's basically who's paying for the services gets it. So technically the Sharps program is for residents. So if we see, we've caught people coming in from medical offices trying to dump their Sharps here, and we say, we can't take that. It's a business. So if they're a resident paying into the program, then they're eligible for these services.
So then, in a sense, a renter, let's just take Sue's example of a fourplex, that by paying their rent, they then pay the owner, who then pays their property tax for wastewater services. Are they not meant to benefit from any programs that are targeted towards
solid waste? No, they're not. We cannot do that. We cannot incur wastewater expenses and use solid waste funds. They have to be legally separate. We cannot mix the two.
So then it sounds like the answer to my question is only by combining all solid waste contracts in the city would we ever be able to spread more evenly.
Yeah, exactly. So like community member Lester mentioned, is that if the city is willing to do that, to have that discussion with them, to us take over the multifamily, and now they're part of our program, so we're assessing the property manager, the services, then they were eligible for these programs. Absolutely.
And just to tie a bow on that, currently that property owner, their assessment would be for wastewater only, and then they would presumably pay a bill to one of those vendors and not see it as an assessment for their solid waste.
Correct, exactly. So they're getting a monthly bill from one of the 6 haulers they're contracting with. Yes, correct.
Well, and that's why I brought up too, like the verbiage where it talks about the programs, where it says if you're a sanitary district resident, it would be confusing because I'm a resident and I live in the sanitary district, but I'm not their customer. So I wouldn't be entitled to those programs, like you just pointed out. But if it said, resident, I think, well, I'm a resident, I live here. Most people don't know the difference. I never would have known the difference until I started coming here. So
you, based on, sorry, just one more question. Do you vote for the board members of the sanitary district?
Yes, because I live in.
Because they also govern
that
wastewater. Right.
Yes.
Right.
Some of those programs are available, like the battery collection at the school. That's not for, it's for any of the school participants, or the HHW roundup that you do. You're not stipulating that they're
the household hazard waste door-to-door program, that's again for residents only.
Because but I mean the one-off collection programs that you've done in the past, or the Goodwill or cooking oil or any of the other ones.
Yeah, we're not going to turn people away, but it's intended for the residents.
But
yes.
It calls into question just basic safety factors when you're dealing with hypodermic needles on the ground.
Yes.
Because I have to pick up a lot of hypodermic needles in my neighborhood because I've got hotels and all kinds of crazy things happening.
Yeah, if
technically I shouldn't be bringing my Sharps here. I should be disposing of them in another.
Yeah, but we're not going to turn you away if you're a resident and you find some Sharps and you put in a container. That's fine. What we're discouraging are medical offices to come and drop off tons of their syringes. That's what we don't want. Yeah, so, but we're not going to turn you away for that. No. So.
Okay. Any other questions or comments regarding this agenda item? No. Hearing none. Moving on to the last agenda item, for the most part, the review of the ordinance number 122, amending Chapter 7.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to turn this over to Nabila Guzman. She's going to present you some proposed amendments to our solid waste code that we're going to be bringing to the board at the end of the month. So we need action from the committee if you recommend these changes to the board for their adoption consideration. So I'm going to turn it over to Nabila.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, on June 28, 2018, the Board of Directors approved a new solid waste contract with CR&R and introduces new services and language, which is in conflict with the district's operations code that we must update. Attached to your report was Ordinance 122 that identifies the recommended amendments. The amendments include moving all definitions from Chapter 8 to Chapter 2. Chapter 2 was already a definitions chapter, but Chapter 8 included some, so it made no sense to have two places with definitions, so we're moving them all to one concise place. Other amendments include basic service definition, updating the current 3-card container charge, as well as adding a new section for the door-to-door household hazardous waste program. After the review from the committee, the ordinance will be presented to the Board of Directors on November 29th for approval. If it's approved, it will go into effect 30 days after adoption. I'm happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
I have one.
Yes.
Regarding concrete and asphalt, I found sections where it said concrete is specifically prohibited, and then in a later section that it was a permitted recyclable material. And
I will double check on that. It should be prohibited because it's construction material.
Okay.
So as a residential curbside service, there are no construction material allowed.
Okay, yeah, just for reference, it's section 8.01.040. Item G lists concrete and asphalt as permitted recycling materials.
I will check that. Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
I noted in the definition for solid waste, it's including solid waste shall be defined as discarded putrescible and non-putrescible solid, semi-solid and liquid waste that is permittable to be disposed of. Then in a lower section it's saying that liquid waste is not permitted.
I will double check that as well.
A and B, yeah. The following are prohibited from being placed in containers for collection. Item number 2 is liquid waste. I don't know if there needs to be further clarification on that. Just something that stood out.
Thank you.
Is there any other feedback about this? I think this is a great document. So you're looking for a direction for a motion to forward this? Oh, I apologize, Ms. Moser. I didn't see your hand.
Yeah, thank you again. My name is Jim Moser, and I had two comments. One of you, since you're kind of new to the district, and maybe have attended council meetings in Costa Mesa. I don't know if you have or not. You may be interested to know that the process for adopting an ordinance is rather different here in a special district than it is in a city. In a city, the ordinance has to be introduced. It then has to be advertised and posted. In theory, the public has a couple of weeks or more to review it, and then exactly that language has to be adopted. So that's supposed to be a kind of a public scrutiny period. There's a first reading and a second reading of an ordinance. Special districts are not required to do that. So this is rather unusual that the ordinance is getting any public review at all, because normally it would just be introduced at a board meeting and it would be adopted that night, and that would go into the operation code for the district. So if you were not aware of that, that would be good for you to know. And I can point out another thing as the committee members have been pointing out. I'm not quite sure. I'm looking at section 701.070, and it's about the large item program. And it mentions furniture, appliances, and it says other special programs may cover Christmas trees, used oil, used syringes, and tires. And then there's a paragraph under it that says items that will not be accepted are tires, asphalt, car bodies. So that there are still some massaging that needs to be done on this language, and without your reviewing it, there probably wouldn't have been none, and that would just go into the operations code as was written here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moser. So I believe staff's looking for direction to forward this along to the board for approval, or any other actions that we may want to take.
question. If we were to suggest that those items be changed, that you guys are looking into them, do those then have to come back for us to look at them again? Or from what if we say, yeah, let's move it forward to the board, can the board then make changes to it after we move it? Or how does that work? Because I know, like Mr. Moser pointed out, the city does it completely different, where if the city council were to change any of the verbiage in the amendment as it was brought forward, then they'd have to start the whole process again. They can't just change the wording and
No. You can make a motion approving the ordinance as is with, on a contingent that staff makes the correction that was described by the committee tonight. So based on the corrections you made tonight, you could direct staff make those changes and then bring that to the board for approval. Yes. So.
Okay. Well, if no one has any other questions or comments, then I make a motion that we approve this to move forward to the board based on staff reviewing the inconsistencies that were found by the members and mentioned tonight, and do another review to make sure that none of us missed anything.
So you want us to bring this back to you?
So no.
No, okay.
And then move it.
Okay, so right, so recommending is not putting words in your mouth, but to recommend recommending the board direction to adopt the ordinance contingent that staff makes the amendments identified by the committee and members of the public. Yes.
Right, and that there's no other inconsistencies.
Correct. Gotcha. So, yeah, no line, did you get that?
I second that motion that it be received by staff and taken action on, subject to what's been discussed here tonight.
Did you get that motion, Nalani? Yeah, thanks.
I don't know if mine was the second or first.
So second,
Got it.
Vice Chairman
Sue-
second.
Sue had a first. Yeah.
Wonder if I can reread it again, and/or anybody, committee members, or any other public person, board members can come and at least make recommendations for inconsistencies.
Okay, so Ms. Lester has a first. Mr. Graham has a second. Comments? No? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Okay, closing items. We're doing pretty good tonight. Is there any fellow board or staff comments?
I have a comment if no one else has one. If it's okay, Mr. Chairman. I do want to mention, hopefully the committee saw the story in the Daily Pilot a couple weeks ago about the new program we implemented regarding retiring U.S. flags. I don't know if you noticed the bin when you walked in here. It was all wrapped in a U.S. flag. So now if you don't know where to dispose of your unwanted U.S. flag, you can drop it off here. And the Boy Scouts, a local troop here in Costa Mesa, will collect the flags, and they'll do the proper ceremonial, which usually is burning the flags, the proper ceremony of burning the flags. And 2 weeks since we had that story posted, we already have 30 flags in that bin. So it's been a very successful program so far. And so if you have a flag, or if you know friends that need to dispose of the flag, please bring them here. So.
I do have a comment. Some of you know we have classic cars, and we get invited to parades. So we got invited to the San Clemente parade for the veterans. And they had, I think, 600 soldiers from Pendleton. Yeah. And so somebody came up to me and handed me these banners that hang these on your car, and it was CR&R. CR&R is a big sponsor down there.
Yes.
And people kept asking, like officials with the city and the parade and so forth, where's your person from CR&R? And I didn't have anybody, but I had a wonderful vet that rode with me. So I represented CR&R.
All right. Very good. It's good to know.
I just have a request. Would it be possible for staff to send send us a copy of the revised ordinance once they've like revised it for the board, just so
Sure.
all of us can take a look at it again?
Sure, we'll do that, definitely.
Not before it goes to the board, but just in addition to.
Yeah, absolutely. We can send it to you before it goes to the board.
Not to vote on it again?
Yeah, we don't have to vote on it again, but just if any of us want to look at it again.
Just-
Wrong with it, run to the next meeting.
Yeah, just FYI, so we'll send it out to you, but please, if you're going to comment, don't reply to all that you're going to comment, because that'd be a violation of the Brown Act. So if you have any comments, just send it individually to me. Do not copy your fellow committee members. Okay. Well, we can. There's a pretty simple change. We can get it to you before the board meeting. So.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions from the group?
The liaison meeting that was mentioned, when is that next one?
It is on December 21st.
That is open to the public, and it's where at the City Hall. Yeah, we'll post it on our agenda. We'll have it on our website, so you'll know where it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Will City Hall be ready by then, or will it be at the Senior Center? Do you think?
Well, it's just the chamber. The council chambers is under construction. The City Hall itself is fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So they have it in a conference room. Yeah.
Oh. No, the joint committee. No, that's something else. We're on the 75th anniversary committee.
Oh, that's what it is.
That's what it is. Yeah. Okay. Any other comments or questions for the good of the group? No? Great.
All right, great. Thank you.
Hearing none, I'll adjourn this meeting at 7:08 p.m. Good work, everybody. Thank you very much. See you next month.